Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by the Draft Professor. The Draft Professor is a group of podcasters bringing you daily draft podcasts and is home to the only dynamic mock draft simulator which allows fans to mock draft against other fans. The Draft Professor Simulator features a first-round challenge, 5 unique one-round drafts. The Draft Professor Simulator features a second-round challenge, 10 unique 2-round drafts. All mock drafts are always picking against the fans and draft analysts which use the simulator. Every mock, every pick, every time. The Draft Professor also features ranked players functionality, where you can rank your favorite players at every position. Optionally, you can add tiers to your rankings to show what round you have the players graded in. The Draft Professor also features Draft a Team functionality, which allows users to snake draft a team of 22 players to demonstrate your my guys, compare player strengths, and discuss draft prospects in a way no other mock draft simulator can. Thank you for tuning in to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. This episode will begin shortly. Hey, well, welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. It is Thursday night with Owen and Newt. It is good to see both of you.
It's good to be here. Really starting to look forward to these Thursdays. I know I say it every time we hop on, but like Friday's tomorrow. That's already a good roll into the weekend, but this is even like, we got this to kind of kick things off even before you wake up Friday morning. So absolutely happy to be here.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward. I'm good. I'm looking forward to see Bill Sparks in the chat because I want to make a proclamation on mine and Newt's behalf after yesterday's podcast showing that this Thursday podcast is a confirmed Tonka Hemingway fan club from now on because they disrespected our boy on that episode, Newt. I don't know if you caught it on. It was the best pass rushing D tackles, the best run stopping D tackles, and no respect given to Tonka Hemingway. And yes, I did watch Tonka Hemingway film before we got on this thing. Should I have been watching guys who are more relevant to this 2-round mock draft? Sure. Was I watching Tonka Hemingway? Yes, I was. And I'm confirmed in my stance that he is a good early day 3 pick for me.
I love that. I didn't catch the slander. It sounds like Bill Sparks basically said he's undraftable. He should go get a suit and tie and just sign up for a corporate job. Am I hearing that correct?
Yeah, about right. Yeah, not in the top 10 best pass rushing D tackles.
Oh man, that is brutal. I mean, I'm lower on Tonka Hemingway, but I think if we're talking about pass rushing tackles, he'd probably he'd be at least mentionable in there. I'm not saying he's number 1 or 2. He should have been in
the top 10. Based upon what I heard you guys say, I thought he should have been in the top 10.
Well, the problem is Riley Mills' name probably takes up 3 spots alone. So then you I get that then.
Yeah, actually, one of the guys, Durst had him as a 3-4 run stopping defensive end. He made Durst's list for the run stopping.
Really? Run stopping.
He says if it's a 3-4 defensive end, he says that's what you want to use Riley Mills for.
I mean, but what I'm hearing is Riley Mills, if you want him, you better get him probably mid to late first round because it's extremely versatile all around is what I hear.
Cool.
I also want to excuse any random bouts of random patriotism during this stream with the Team USA versus Team Canada game going on at first. Intermission just went through, so if we bring on a random USA chance, you know what happens.
I thought you were going to excuse the random bouts of your screen falling down and the sight of a cat flurrying away.
Hey, I've locked them out this time. They are fed, have used the bathroom. They're not. They have no need to be in this room right now. So we are safe and sound.
That's the saddest thing I'm going to hear all night, probably. So.
Oh, yeah. So this is usually a pet-friendly podcast. I'm just saying it's usually pet friendly. But so we're going to be doing a 2-round mock. I think the order is going to start with me, then go to Newt, then go to Owen, and we're going to circle back around for 2 rounds. So you guys ready to go?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay. 2 rounds. Every team is selected. Here we go. Okay. So first overall, I am going to say it is Cameron Ward to the Titans.
Do you want to give any background to it? I don't know if you need to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll announce the pick just to let everybody's head get around it. But if you need a quarterback, you draft a quarterback at the top. Whether Cam Ward is your top player on the board or whether he's just further down, there feels like consensus that he is a first-round grade. You take the quarterback at the top. And you really don't think about it. That's just what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a first round grade on him per se, but the quarterback position's so incredibly important that, and we've talked about like how I grade and how my big board's made up. He still pushes his way up to 15 on my board, and at that point, I totally get it. I have the Browns. And man, I think with this, and obviously, there's Bill Sparks sitting on one shoulder saying that Abdul Carter is the way, the truth, and the light. But I'm gonna go with Travis Hunter. The reason for me being I cannot pass up on a player of this caliber, a player that I've heard the word unicorn more in draft media over the last month than anyone else. So I've just got to take the best player available. No disrespect to Abdul Carter whatsoever. And especially if Myles Garrett does get traded, that may impact like my thought on this a little bit. But for right now, I got to go Travis Hunter.
I definitely respect not taking Shedeur there, even though Deshaun Watson's all but done in Cleveland after that second Achilles tear. You know for a fact that you're gonna get another high pick next year just because you have no answer at quarterback. Maybe Kirk Cousins if the Falcons end up cutting him and he takes like a minimum deal to play for you, but even then you have Hunter who's gonna be a cornerback. They do need another weapon in the offensive game, so you can add a splash of that for your offense. And depending on what kind of leverage they pull to get out of their cap constraints without having to bear down on Watson's contract for another few years, they're going to have to move on from. I think Greg Newsome might be a trade candidate for them. So I could definitely see them trying to replace him with Travis Hunter at corner, and then also allowing him to come in and give a little juice to that offense that's going to need it. So I do like the pick. I'm at pick number 3 with the Giants, and I'm in a sticky situation. We were talking about Cam Ward earlier. I have a high 2 on Cam Ward, and that's without any like quarterback multipliers for positional value. So I definitely agree that he should definitely be in that kind of top 10 range. You can take him there, and I'd be comfortable with that. Shedeur, I'm not there as much with it, regardless of how dire the Giants need a quarterback is. If I'm the Giants, I'm looking at maybe Sam Darnold wants to take another swing in the Big Apple or New Jersey, to be more specific. Sorry, I had to take that shot as a Bills fan there.
You have to. There's only one NFL team in New York.
Hell yeah. So they got him. You got Kirk Cousins, who might be looking just for a team to find a starting position on to kind of revitalize his career there, similar to what Darnold did in Minnesota. You have a couple different of these veterans, Russell Wilson, who will be looking for jobs, and the Giants will have some room to move there. So I don't know if I'm going to go with Shedeur. I think to spice it up, I probably won't, and I'll end up taking. This is tough for me because that's usually like the default pick. For me, I'm looking at Abdul Carter to pair up with Brian Burns, but they also have Azeez Ojulari, so it's kind of like they don't really absolutely need a top end rusher here. You can go Tedero McMillan to pair with Malik Neighbors. That's the name. It's got to make whatever quarterback you bring in have the best weapons possible.
Do you have McMillan high enough to take him in the top 10?
I do. I have him as a top 10 graded player. He's the lowest grade I can give a top 10 graded player. I haven't gone back and rewatched his film as much as some of the other receivers, which I do have on the docket to rewatch some of his games or watch a couple new games of his. But right now, I do have him as a top 10 guy. But I think
I've got.
Did you see
I got
Locked On
6
Scouting today, Owen?
What's up, Jim?
Did you see Locked On Scouting? Did you see Joe and Kyle talking about like how much T-Mac had fallen?
Yeah, I did, and I was that's what I was watching, and then they mentioned how they had Matthew Golden at wide receiver 1, or Joe did specifically, and Terrell McMillan. I think was it Josh that didn't have or had Emeka Egbuka wide receiver 1 over him, or I can't remember who it was that we.
I think so. Hey, Josh, if you're still listening, can you remind us who your top 4 wide receivers are? And
yeah,
Brandon,
his top 4.
Top 4.
Josh's top 4 was Travis, Ibuka, Tet, and then wasn't it Burden? And then 5 was Golden, or no, 4 was Golden, and then 5 was Burden, or something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, I think I've kind of talked my way around this pick that should not have taken as long as it did. Like, I'm looking at the players available. Abdul Carter, you got there's a Brian Burns, there's Ezekiel Ojulari there. They have interior pressure with their D tackles. Groom isn't the worst. You have Malik Neighbors as your wide receiver 1. I'm bouncing back and forth between going with T-Mac or going with Shedeur. I'm just gonna end up taking. Let's take McMillan. Let's shake this up a little bit. Give him as the wide receiver 2 to Malik Neighbors there, and really helping out the quarterback that they will end up bringing in through free agency.
Okay, I was going to try a scenario, but the scenario I was going to try assumed Abdul Carter was going in the top 3. So I was going to go with a different player here, but with Abdul Carter, the Patriots can't pass that up. So
what was the idea there, Jim?
I was going to go Josh Simmons.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, like I think Josh Simmons is going to go higher than anybody is really talking about. I don't think he makes it out of like the top 7.
I think if he's cleared medically, I'm not going to push back on that. I just know that like that patella tear, it has got a lot. Like Dom and I talked about that on his podcast. That like it's just. It's a scary thing. Like an ACL would be better than what he has. But I do agree if he's healthy, he's a number 1 left tackle in this class.
Yep.
I agree with that.
Yep. Hey, and Brandon, it's great to see you. You're here nearly every night, so it's awesome to see you popping in. So when we get to the Texans, I'm sure we will offer up the peanut gallery.
Well, since we're 4 picks in. 13 minutes into the podcast. This is, we might have to get through this too quickly at this rate that we're going. I'm going to make a really nice, simple, easy pick here. I'm going to go Mason Graham to the Jaguars. Mason Graham is a blue chip talent for me, top 3 player on my board. And conveniently, the Jaguars need interior defensive help. They need help on both sides of the trenches, but this is going to be where that versatility is for getting a guy that can play both run and pass, getting a guy that's an impact player. I don't love cornerbacks here yet, though if Graham was gone, I'd consider Will Johnson. I'm still high on him, but I'm going to go Graham.
Okay.
All right, so now I'm here with the Raiders, and even though I said what I did about the Giants and not wanting to take Shedeur there super high, I've kind of always liked the fit of Shedeur to the Raiders, having that, Tom Brady's running it now. They're going to be expending a lot of capital into making that offense better. They don't really have anybody. They have Minshew. They have Aiden O'Connell. I'm not sure how ready free agents are going to go to be in a division where you're playing against Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, and Patrick Mahomes 2 times every year. So I do think there's and just with how the Raiders have had so much turnover with head coach, and overall that whole mess of situation they've had, it's been something I don't think is really attractive to free agents. I think the Giants may be in that lower end tier as well, but I do think some of the stuff about being in New York, having Dable as your head coach, can be attractive to that. So I think I'm gonna pull and do Shedeur here. Still not my favorite pick personally, but I do think the Raiders can't afford to pass up on someone at quarterback that they might not be able to get at next year.
Yep. And just so that anybody watching knows, every team on this simulator has their own player board. So if you see players in a different order as we flip from team to team, it's based upon who the users of, for example, the Jets, they're drafting Josh Simmons the most here. That's why he's the highest. So that's how that works. So I'm definitely going Josh Simmons to the Jets at pick 7. Panthers are on the clock with Newt.
Let me just catch mine up to that. So Simmons gone. Just fine. Panthers don't need a tackle. I don't like. I just. It seems like the Panthers need everything, but like nothing at the same time. I would have loved for Tet to be here, and I know that they just took like a wide receiver last year with that kind of like sneak into the first round, but I'm gonna go Will Johnson. I'm not gonna pass up on him. I think he's a top tier prospect, and he's too good to like get out of the top 10 in my opinion. Especially when the Panthers need a defensive back, and honestly, he's just the next guy on my board. So
fair. Okay, so now we're up with the New Orleans Saints, and I'm gonna see that this is another team that really needs a lot because they are constantly pulling levers. They're looking to move on from a guy like Cameron Jordan. They have to make sacrifices in areas where you're looking to save money because they're just so strapped against the cap every year. But I think personally, a player is here that I think fits with what they have currently on the offensive side. And it's going to be Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri. He's one of 4, not counting Travis Hunter, one of 3 wide receivers with first round grades for me. And Chris Olave is one of the guys that I really do like as a route runner and having speed, but he's also a guy who does a lot of his damage before the catch. And if we can not see Marquez Valdes-Scantling on this offense next year, with Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave being kind of your typical outside wide receivers, you can get Burden in kind of a slot or gimmick role. I think you can really succeed there and have like a good trio of wide receivers for whoever's going to be playing quarterback for them next year.
Okay. So my hot take for Locked On Scouting is that Kenneth Grant goes in the top 10. So we'll see if they choose to answer that tomorrow. But I'm going Kenneth Grant at 10 to Chicago.
I like that. I really like that. I mean, I hate that as a Packer because I like Kenneth Grant. I wouldn't have done that personally, but I think it's a really cool way of looking at filling a position where the Bears they need to beef up the trenches, and he's going to do that for sure. All right, so we got San Francisco. They're another team that needs trench help. I shit you not, Jim, I would have taken Kenneth Grant here. Had you not. And I'm actually kind of salty looking at that now. Oh, damn it.
It's a lot harder to draft against humans.
That is. It's like, it's the truth. Because you don't, and like, or if you're doing like a team draft, you never know like who's going to go before you or X, Y, and Z. I'm going to go Kelvin Banks Jr. and I'm going to drive like 90% of the draft professors nuts with that pick because I know that he's not necessarily like a huge name there. But I think he offers some flexibility in terms of where he plays. I think he gives you an heir to Trent Williams, and I still really like him. I think he's a really, really solid offensive tackle. I think he's athletic, and he has just that mentality that you want to see. So I'm going to go Kelvin Banks Jr. here.
Okay, and I just get the layup of all layups in this draft. Assuming I don't see him in our in our top thing here, but yeah, there it is. Yeah, the Ashton Genty to Dallas Cowboys pick is constantly mocked, and for a reason. Like they invested nothing in that running back position and got properly roasted all year for it, especially with Derrick Henry. So I think Jerry Jones more than anybody wants Genty to fall into his lap so he can overcorrect for that mistake. And even then, it's still a great compliment what they have on offense. I can see them going wide receiver. I can see them going offensive line with Zach Martin retiring. But I think adding a dynamic piece like Genty is going to be able to add a different element to their offense here.
So I think the Dolphins' BPA here is Tyler Warren. So I'm going to go Tyler Warren. They've needed a tight end for a while. I know several of the draft professors that are Dolphins fans have mocked Warren to Miami. So I think that's let's not even just reasonable. I think that's a highly likely scenario.
I just rewatched Warren again a couple days ago, and I have a take brewing when comparing him as a tight end prospect to Genty as a running back prospect, and who is a better overall prospect for the respective position. And it's funny they just got drafted back to back, but I do think when looking at a true running back and looking at true tight ends, I think Tyler Warren is a better tight end prospect than Genty is a running back prospect. And that's nothing saying against Genty. I think just that highly of Tyler Warren. He's my second highest graded tight end I've ever watched outside of Brock Bowers.
Whoa. Hey, Ryan Sparks, thanks for stopping in. The Bengals are on the clock in 4 picks.
Once again, I've been snaked as I wanted Tyler Warren for the Colts. So I appreciate that, Jim. Just coming up
I'm doing my best, Newt. Doing my best.
No, that's great. I'm going BPA. Then I'm gonna flip opposite side of the ball, kind of opposite position. Malachi Starks. I'm sending him to Indianapolis. They need some help in that secondary. That was probably the most embarrassing thing I saw all year. Their loss to Carolina. No, not Carolina. Who did they just get demolished by? Was it New York? Late in the season. Whoever. It was an embarrassing thing for their defense to just crumble like that. So I think Malachi Starks is a legit first round talent. I really like him, and I think he's gonna be a huge improvement for that defensive backfield.
Yep, they'll get their linebacker help from the Bengals.
So I'm on the clock here with the Falcons, and I'm actually going to go against what my big board says. I have Walter Nolan as my D tackle 2, and he's still on the board here. I do think that the Falcons are going to move on from one of Grady Jarrett or David Onyemata for cap-saving reasons and just to get out of their contract. They're kind of on the older end of it. Good opportunity to take advantage of a strong defensive tackle class, and then also get cheaper and get younger and probably more talented compared to what these guys are at their level of their career at the moment. And even though I have Walter Nolan as my next best defensive tackle, I think with them having nose tackle locked down with Eddie Goldman there, they're going to need somebody when they play that more odd man front to be like a 5-tech D tackle. And the player I think who plays that better than Walter Nolan for me is Derek Harmon from Oregon. Because with the length, he has experience playing out in space on the edge. They use him as an edge sometimes. And I did think that his best position would be 5-tech and could eventually move inside the 3-tech or 1-tech. But I think that's just the best fit for where he's naturally going to play at the NFL level with his length and ability to get upfield.
Are you on Harmon here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because you started talking about Nolan. I was confused for a second.
Nolan is definitely higher on my board, but I think with fit-wise, I think Harmon would be better for them.
Okay. And after Owen is me, correct?
Correct. You are the Cardinals.
Okay. So Cardinals, they need interior offensive line. They need defensive playmakers. I see Mike Green sitting at the top of the board here. I'm also surprised to see Jalen Walker fall this far.
Hot take. I'm not.
Say that again.
I say hot take. I'm not surprised to see Jalen Walker fall this far, But that's probably a conversation for a different episode.
So I'm going to go Mike Green here to the Cardinals at 16. And Ryan Sparks, the Bengals are on the clock.
I'm going to take it for him. He's going to say Walter Nolan. I already know it. I'm gonna pop it in. Ryan Sparks can hand me the key to Cincinnati. If I'm wrong, I will apologize, but I'm going Walter Nolan for sure for the Bengals here.
Okay, and then Owen, you're up for Seattle.
So this is another kind of like layup for me personally. We're gonna go with the best player available on my board right now that is also at a position of need for the Seattle Seahawks. And we're gonna go with Will Campbell to play guard for them over the likes of Laken Tomlinson or Anthony Bradford. They have those two stud tackles. You just got to bring someone who I think Will Campbell's natural position is going to be at guard. And if you bring him in, he's already going to be an immediate upgrade over whatever you had from last season.
Here's the other thing I heard about Campbell too, and you think of Abe Lucas, and he had a strong end to the season, but he's been riddled with injuries. And if you need a guy to kick out, then you do have a little bit of that with Will Campbell. Obviously, you're hoping that he can just play guard for you, but you get a little bit of first position versatility out of him, even though that you probably don't want that as his long-term role.
Yeah, I do think that gives you ups his value, and I'm surprised he lasted as long as he did. I think Seattle's sprinting that pickup personally, so I do think that we'll see him as guard, especially in Seattle right away. But like you said, both Abe Lucas and Charles Cross have had injuries in the recent past, so we could see him be kind of a flex player for them.
Okay, and this is me for the Buccaneers. So I believe they need linebacker help. They need corner help. I'm curious, do you guys have a corner that's worthy of 19? Like, do you have Azrae Thomas that high?
I wouldn't bat an eye at it.
He's like 15th on my board.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go Jalen Walker because I know they need a linebacker. Well, I know they need a linebacker, but I thought I remembered, like, from a team need standpoint, they need corner, edge, and
corner, edge, and linebacker. You're right.
So,
oh man, yeah, Azrae Thomas definitely a top 15 player. Yeah, I'd take him here. All right, I'm not going to take him then. Oh, that was amazing.
Thank you. So Broncos are on the clock, and they need every skill position on offense, as well as defensive tackle.
Yeah, they need a fair amount. My problem is I want to go Loveland, and the thing is it's one of those that is continuously getting mocked over and over and over, and I don't want to do it just to do it, if that makes sense. Like, oh, that's just what everyone's doing, and it does make sense. I'm not saying that like I'm like just mindlessly walking that in, but to me that there are a couple of guys on here like Nick Scarton is a player that I could easily see taking here. Membu,
they have really good edge depth.
I know, and that's the problem. It's just like he's falling, and I really really like him. I've got a top 10 grade on him, but their edge depth, like as you're saying, is just very very good.
They have a sneaky linebacker too.
Yeah, so Jahad Campbell had popped in my head, and I think he's who I'm going to go with is Jahad Campbell because I want to shake it up a little bit, and I love the Loveland pick. I think it's great, but I just can't. I want to see something like a little bit different, and I think that would be Jahad Campbell. And I think he's totally worthy of it. I really, really like Campbell as a player and as a prospect.
Well, I have a lot of Denver fans that watch the page. So when I post the results of the mock draft, I will be sure to tag you in it to let you know what they think.
Yeah. I think we're like, who the hell picked that garbage? And I'm like, oh man. But hopefully,
well, I'm not gonna make much fans of this next pick. So we have the weekly tradition of me and facing a Mecha Book at the top of this board, who I'm not picking. Jim, beware. I didn't get to do my full rant last week because we watched corners, and a lot of the corners I watched happened to have played the Ohio State Buckeyes, like Jabbar Muhammad, who absolutely bullied him into his own quarterback, or Sebastian Castro, whose only interception of the year came because he absolutely rerouted him at the stem with this physical play and came up with his only pick. Looking at the Steelers, I do think they're going to need some wide receiver help. There's some other stuff here that they could definitely add with. So I'm going to be looking at a wide receiver. And they have a slot in Calvin Austin, who they do like. They have Van Jefferson, who's a Z. They also drafted Roman Wilson last year in the 4th. So they have guys setting up. So I'm looking for more of a guy who can be a prototypical X. So I'm going to go with one of the guys that can be that player. And I'm just going to go with my next best available. I have 2 guys really close in grade. But also, just because I don't want to see Bill have anything nice, I'm not going to go with Eli Ayumanar. I'm going to go with Jaden Higgins from Iowa State.
Hey! I totally thought you were going to say Golden. Oh, that's awesome.
Golden, I love him as a Z number 2. Allow him to get in space. He can win with routes and stuff. But if you're going to want someone who can be that more X and bring some size, because they're hopefully going to be moving on from Mike Williams. They're probably going to be trading or cutting George Pickens. You're going to need someone to actually bring size to that wide receiver room to compare with Van Jefferson, Roman Wilson, and Calvin Austin. And it's not going to be Ben Skoranek. So I do think Jaden Higgins is the guy that I would trust to come in and do that and still be a good separator out of the X position. I'm very high in Jaden Higgins.
Hold the phone. Did you say cut George Pickens? Do you actually think that is a... You said trade or cut.
I think he's somebody who I can see forcing his way out. And if the Steelers, someone's going to trade for him, obviously, but I feel like the Steelers will eventually, the culture they have there is going to be something that they're going to want to value. I'm sure they make a trade for him, or he'll sit out until that happens or something like that. There's going to be something on a toxic level relationship there that will end up with that. I just threw cut out there. I don't think he's going to be a Steeler next year. One way or the other.
Can you clip that and say Owen thinks George Pickens will be cut by the draft?
So Owen, if you're Brandon Beane, what would you offer for George Pickens?
So that's tough because you're looking at a guy who, yes, is a very talented player, but like literally is he's throwing UFC moves on corners whenever he can on fail Hail Marys. Who knows if he can go and be a player that gets better with a better quarterback play, but they already dealt with kind of that diva level player with Stephon Diggs, and they made an active decision to move on from that. So I don't know if Brandon Beane would make that trade. I would probably give some kind of like early day 3 pick, like a 4 or 5. That would be my offer, just because that's a contentious relationship, and you're gonna have to take that on top of being he's gonna be due for a contract soon, I believe. So
yeah. He's only got 1 year left on the rookie deal,
right.
So it's not like you're getting him for a long time.
Yeah, so when we traded the 3rd for Cooper, the logic was you're going to get a 5th comp pick back a year later. I can see doing the same thing with Pickens, where you're trading, let's say, a 4th round pick, knowing that when he signs with another team, you're probably going to be getting a 4th round pick back. You're just getting it back a year later. So, anyways.
Yeah, I just don't trust Pickens to be on that roster by the time the regular season, or at least the trade deadline, post-trade deadline. You're going to need to plan for a future without George Pickens there.
Okay.
Okay, that's fair.
So, last year, one of the most common picks was Brock Bowers to the Chargers because they needed a tight end. Colston Loveland went to Michigan. Harbaugh coached at Michigan. I'm not even thinking about that. That just seems like it makes a lot of sense. And Newt, you are on the clock for the Packers. So what are you thinking here?
Nick Scourton, I'm not even second guessing what they need to do from there. I'm more than happy to let the cornerback situation play itself out. I think there's some questions that need to be answered there, but I'm going Nick Scourton, and I'm walking away a very, very happy individual.
Okay, and Owen, you are up for the Vikings, and this is their only pick of this draft because they don't have a second.
When is their next pick after the first? Is it the third?
They have a third.
Or do they have
a third? Do they have a third?
Because there's a team that has like no picks after the first, like until it's like fourth or something.
The Vikings only have 3 picks, I believe, but
they do have 4. A third though. The Vikings because they traded everything, not everything truly, but like a lot for that. They got a comp pick. That's how they got their third, was a comp pick because it's number 97.
Okay,
so yeah, they're going to need to hit on this pick and specifically add it somewhere where they're going to need some instant help there. Now, Micah Williams being there is good. You're highlighting there. We got safety Nick Emmanuel. I think Emmanuel.
I think you said
I could definitely see that there, especially with Harrison Smith getting older. I also am interested in D tackle because their current projected starters are Harrison Smith and Jerry Tillery. Nothing's really. I mean, I do love me some Alfred Collins. Yeah, screw it. We'll pull the Alfred Collins trigger here. I love me some Alfred Collins. He can play either the 1 or 3 tech, depending on what they're asking him for. I'd love him at the 1 tech. And if you really want to beef up on the inside and let some guys like rush from the edge that are kind of on the smaller side, you can definitely roll with that and have Alfred Collins be a pocket pusher. So I do like some Alfred Collins. So there we go.
Nice.
Okay.
Also,
so
US
Brandon,
is 40.
Are you suggesting that you want?
Oh hell yeah!
Here? Is that what you're suggesting here? So if Shamar Stewart is who Brandon wants, I'm not going to sit here and debate it with him. I'm just going to give him a minute to confirm.
Do they need an edge? Do they need an edge though?
Well, he was just saying that they could cut Grenard to save a good bit of cap.
Did they just got him like last year, didn't they? Is this contract that or like set up in that way where it's like a one and done type thing?
Or I'm sorry, he said they can cut Denico Autry.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, and if you like the player, right? That's like fair. If you like the player, regardless of need, I am sure you can find a way to either kick somebody inside on a passing down. And Brandon is saying that people are talking about it. So,
all right.
Hey, that's why I like multiple people in the mock, because different people have different opinions, and we'll see how this one goes. But thanks, Brandon.
Yeah, that's like that's something I would have never thought of. So that, like, I love seeing that.
Yep.
Oh, it's me, Joy. Dang. I'm gonna go. So for LA, I'm gonna go, and this is. Oh wait, Azariah Thomas is still on the board, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Oh yeah.
I'm going Azariah. I was gonna go Morrison. But if Thomas is still on the board, I'm gonna go with him. I think they need to shore up that position a little bit more. They're kind of like ragtagging it right now, and it's not bad by any means, but I think that there's something that they can do by drafting either Azariah Thomas. I'd even be fine if Morrison was here, to kind of get like a dude there.
Okay, so I don't know if Josh is still in the chat, but
I think in this situation, the Baltimore Ravens are sprinting to go draft Michael Williams. They relied on 33-year-old Kyle Van Noy to put up career best numbers. David Ojabo hasn't really worked out the way they wanted him to. This is very much like that same style of hybrid linebacker rush edge. rush linebacker edge that the Ravens love, and they always kind of capitalize on these guys who fall on the board. So great value there for the Ravens.
Okay, so the Lions. This one for me is actually tough in knowing exactly what they need. So I will say it's not a running back and it's not a wide receiver. Those are the two things that are flashing through my head. So even though they probably need a wide receiver 3, I don't know that you draft wide receiver 3. No. Like Igbuka maybe could be that in gold, like maybe, but they have a downfield receiver already in Jameson Williams.
Igbuka's too much like Amon-Ra, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think my personal favorite receiver for them to go there would be Ayumanner, just because they have Tim Patrick in that role right now. And yes, you have your deep threat in James Williams, but he just got popped for an illegal gun possession again, and he's been suspended and injured a bunch of times. They may be looking to move on from him eventually. But also, Ayumanner kind of plays that same role that Tim Patrick does as this bigger body guy who can go up and win at the catch point, but also kind of stretches the field. And Ayumanner is just an elite run blocker as a wide receiver. And you have him, Amon-Ra. They love to pound the rock. I think from a stylistic standpoint, that's a wide receiver that they would go with, and that could fit that role on their offense and have like a good pathway to start. I don't know if wide receivers like their biggest need, especially here where you're kind of picking through who you like specifically for that spot. So that would be my suggestion for if you're going to go wide receiver with the Lions.
Also, I want to clear up the Williams slander. He didn't get popped for another gun possession. This was from the one back in October. The NFL decided. Decided that. I was just like, what? Like, how is this guy figured out not to illegally carry guns? This would be the second time in 6 months. They just made the ruling on it.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
You know something? I'm going to pull something out of Josh's QB rankings.
Oh no!
This is a Will Howard pick.
No, what?
Will Howard, quarterback 2.
Oh.
So Josh had Will Howard as QB 2, so I'm going Will Howard here.
Oh my god!
You know that feels like a pick that would happen in real life. That we're all just sitting here, like the Michael Penix pick last year, where you're just aghast.
Yes. The reaction on both of your face was worth that pick.
You know, I've Jim. So I'm marking my own big board off to the side, just like I'm kind of going off mine. I don't even need to mark that pick off. I don't think I was going to get to where he would be at. So yeah. Okay, I'm good. That was
I was expecting a Jackson Dart shout there. If you were going to go quarterback at all, that was something I was not anticipating.
Yeah, well, no, Dart was in the chat. That was what Ryan said. But I decided to go for Will Howard. So
okay, all right, there it is. I am going to go with Owen's favorite player, Emeka Egbuka, for the Washington Commanders. And aside from the tease, I think he's a really good fit for this team. You got Scary Terry, where he's going to be able to kind of do outside things for you. I think that if you take a look at Egbuka, he's going to be able to play kind of in that possession role, kind of underneath the route running savvy that he has. So I really, really like, and I've seen this a couple times. This is a personal favorite of mine, Emeka Egbuka, number 29 overall to the Washington Commanders.
Yep. And Brandon, thank you for your support. It means the world to me. Thank you. I was not feeling the love in this room with the Will Howard pick, so I needed at least a little
insane.
bit.
I'm still not over that. I'm still shook. Well, thank you for choosing the inferior receiving prospect for the Washington Commanders, because now I get my dream pick. If I'm going to be making by the end of this process, right before the draft is, I'm going to be making a Buffalo Bills specific big board for who I think would fit best and who I'd want to see most at that pick, realistically. And I think Matthew Golden is going to be my number one guy there. He's just a stud, and he's exactly what they need at the Z receiver spot, opposite Keon Coleman. We'll have Khalil Shakir in the slot. He would fit the absolute perfect role for that Buffalo Bills offense. So I am in love with that pick. I was worried you were going to actually take Golden there because that is a popular spot for him to go right now.
Yeah.
Luckily, I get my guy without having to move up.
Okay, yeah. And the Chiefs need a safety, don't they? Isn't one of their guys a free agent? One of their starters is a free agent, I think.
I believe he is. Yeah. Who is it? Oh, I can't think of his name.
I can't think of his name either.
I know they drafted Jaden Hicks last year in the 4th, and he saw a ton of snaps and actually played pretty good for a rookie campaign. But maybe I think that they're always looking to kind of plug away at the secondary just because teams have to throw the ball against them so often.
So their safeties were Justin Reed and Brian Cook.
I could see corner here, so replacing or moving Jalen Watson back down to corner 3 opposite Trent McDuffie. That's a spot I could definitely see them going. You also have.
So I was thinking of Barron or Watts. Xavier Watts is still here, and I was trying to think: is Reed gone? Is Justin Reed? But Justin Reed is a strong safety, and Hicks is behind him, and they have Brian Cook. So I do think it's a corner. I'm gonna go with.
You could also go offensive. You could also go offensive tackle.
Yeah.
Wait, Connerly is here. Yeah.
Say Josh Connerly.
That's a popular pick. I think that if you are not comfortable with Connerly as a prospect, I get going DB. But if you think that he's at all going to be an upgrade over that room, obviously minus Thuney, who's being forced to play out of position right now, then you got to go with that.
Okay. And Newt's on the clock for the Eagles.
So this is going to be where the slough. No, it's not going to. This is going to be where the slide stops. Yeah, that's where I was going. The slide stops here. We're going to go James Pierce Jr. Another player that is freaky in terms of his, speed off the snap. He's explosive. He's got really good length. I feel like the Eagles always find a way to, make the most out of these young athletic prospects. So I think James Pierce Jr. to the Eagles, although he did not play for Georgia, so that might be a little bit of a question mark. But I like that there for them.
They were really hoping for Michael Williams to fall here.
That would have been that. That would be it. It's Michael Williams, edge, Georgia. Yeah, that's file it in.
Okay, so
do you want to go through and just do a run through the first, Jim, just so we can get a refresh on who has what? Because I have the Browns coming up. I'm pretty sure they took Travis Hunter.
They did. So I was going to do it one pick at a time, meaning, so the Browns took Travis Hunter. Yeah. What would you do here?
That's fine.
Are we going to remember all the way through? But
yeah.
Do you want me to run through all 32?
No, that's totally fine. I already have my pick anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to go with Omarion Hampton here to replace Nick Chubb as a long-term player. You have Jerome Ford, who I believe is going to be on his last year's rookie contract. Chubb may never be the same player again. I'm just not plussed between Donta Foreman and Pierre Strong Jr. and John Kelly.
I like that pick a lot.
Okay.
Does Jackson Dart cross your mind here at all, Owen?
With the Giants not going quarterback, especially even if they do sign someone, for the Browns,
yeah,
I could definitely see it. And also with the Browns not really having a guy that is in your developmental pocket, you might think that you're going to end up with a high pick next year and be able to draft a quarterback in a better crop. If that's the case, I'm fine with Dart just being a guy that you took a swing on in the second and he didn't miss, but you ended up with a good quarterback. You've seen the Cardinals do it with back-to-back first-round picks. I just wasn't comfortable doing it with the second overall there, but with the first pick in the second round, I think you'd be more likely to do it. But I also think Jalen Milroe could be a guy in the later rounds, and that could be the same kind of situation there. So I'm not too off with that.
Okay.
Is this me for the Giants?
This is you for the Giants, yes.
Okay. So they did T-Mac in round 1, and I'm going to do Armand Membu here in round 2. And the Titans are on the clock, and I believe they took Cam Ward. Yep.
Dang. I wanted Membu. You did it again, Jim.
I am getting really good at this.
Yeah. I just don't necessarily like any other tackle at this spot. And I really wanted, if you're going to get Cam Ward, I want to help Cam Ward. And
they also need edge. So a couple of draft professors are from the Titans. Edge and wide receiver would be really good picks here.
Yeah. I'm not going to do either of those. I'm going to go Benjamin Morrison. I think I'm going to go Morrison. I'm going to in this world, his hip is fine, and this is a steal for them. And if the Titans fans, if they want to chastise me, that's fine. I can live with it.
Okay. So the Jaguars took Mason Graham in round 1. And I know there's 3 draft professors that are Jaguars fans. Corner needs to be addressed, whether it's now or really soon.
Okay, I can definitely see it. I was looking somewhere else right now, especially because this has been a consistent issue with them for years and years, and they've invested into it. And now you have some more aging players, and I'm specifically talking about that offensive line. So you have Anton Harrison at right tackle. You have that figured out. But you have Brandon Scherf, who I don't know what his contract situation is. I know Mitch Morse is on the last year of his deal, and he's going to be 33 with a history of concussions. You have Walker Little left tackle, who I was a Walker Little fan when he was coming out of Stanford, but I don't think he's a guy who prevents you from drafting somebody. So we have Marcus Mbao highlight here, but I think we saw this guy snap at the Senior Bowl. And if you have him flex at the center, guard, tackle, you got Gray Zabel on the board there. Somebody who's getting first-round hype right now for the Jaguars. So I think the slide for him, I guess, if you want to call it a slide based on popular consensus right now, stops here with Gray Zabel.
I love that.
Okay, so I am on the clock for the Raiders. In round 1, they took Shedeur. So I'm immediately thinking offensive line. But granted, I could do just about anything, and it's going to be a good pick.
Their line's actually gotten a lot better, hasn't it? I know 2 years ago it was straight cheeks, but I think they've actually kind of quietly gotten a little bit better.
Well, yeah, they added Jackson Powers Johnson. Andre James isn't a bad center. Dylan Parham, their interior 3 is pretty good, and Colton Miller has always been kind of their rock there. I think right tackle with DJ Glaze and Thayer Munford, that's probably an area where you want to add to. But I'm not too pressed to get that right now. Okay. Unless you go Jonas Savanaia.
Well, I was thinking Savanaia. I'm going with an S. It's either Savanaia or Sabian. Because they need wide receivers as well.
I'm a big fan of Savanaia as someone who can play at tackle. And that's their kind of up to this point. I'm not sure how the team's gonna be run now. They did just add a quarterback, so they may want to go with more pass things, but they've always been historically a run first team, and they have guys who can people movers and Jackson Powers Johnson and Dylan Parham up front. You can add a guy like Savanaia who can kind of road grade out there at the right tackle spot. We thought he was a little too unathletic to play left tackle, but I definitely think he can play right tackle or guard. It's probably his more natural position, but I think right tackle is not something he can't play at the NFL level. So
okay, so I'll go Savanaia to the Raiders with the Patriots on the clock, and the Patriots in round 1 took Abdul Carter. And they need offensive line help.
Oh, yeah. They need offensive line help.
Like, you could take 3 and it's still not enough.
Yeah. The problem is I want to tackle here. They still need a guard. Man. You know what? I'm gonna take with the best lineman I have on my board, and that's Tyler Booker. So let's go ahead and cash it in for the Patriots. Tyler Booker is going to go here at number 38 overall to the Patriots. Come on down, my friend. You are New England Patriot.
The Bears took Kenneth Grant in the first, and this is the first of their 2 second-round picks to Owen.
I am sprinting to the podium for Donovan Jackson here.
Yeah.
I think they have like 5 or 6 offensive linemen under contract right now, and half of those guys aren't starters. So, and especially on the interior, you're looking for a guy, and he's my best available interior offensive lineman available.
Okay. So the Saints took Burden in round 1. And I'm going to look at the guard, and Wyatt Milam is on the board. I'm taking Milam because, again, best offensive lineman available. Bears are back on the clock. They've taken Donovan Jackson, Kenneth Grant, and that is to who picks after me? I've already forgotten.
That would be me. That'd be me.
Okay, thank you, Newt. There's only 2 of you here, and I still couldn't get it right.
Let's see here. I think they need a long snapper. Yeah. Jim, can you bring up the long snapper list?
That doesn't exist on my simulator. I haven't done that one yet.
Punter next. Then I know they took the guy last year, but you can never have too many backup punters. All right, enough with the silly stuff. Man, this is like, truth be told, I probably would love to just double down and have gone Milam, though. I guess I'm not like, oh baby, here it is, Luke Kandra. Come on down. You are a Chicago Bear. There it is. There it is, baby.
He found a way to get his guy in there.
It pains me to say it, but come on down, bud.
All right. So, remind me real quick who the
round 1 for Josh Simmons.
All right, Josh Simmons. You know what? We're going to just let it rip with the top guy on the board here with Jackson Dart. We're going to bring in a quarterback, even though, again, I'm not someone who values him at this high. I'd probably be safer towards like round 3, but the Jets have no plan in that quarterback position, whether it's in the present or future. I doubt Sam Darnold's going to be willing to come back to them. And there's a lot of people that just aren't going to be willing to sign up for the clown show that is the Jets. So bringing in a young guy who can develop, and then whoever ends up being their guy, I have a weird feeling that Hendon Hooker is going to make his way onto the Jets after they bring in the Detroit Lions defensive coordinator. He's a guy that everyone seems to like, but just never gets reps. So I think we'll see an amazing quarterback battle between Hendon Hooker and Jackson Dart in my fictional Jets predicted for offseason, and then me as a Bills fan cheers in the distance.
Yeah. So Ryan, if you didn't know, Newt is a huge Luke Kandra fan. Huge. Okay, for the 49ers, I'm going Jahdae Barron. I'm not even
damn it.
I am not thinking about that one too much. They need corner. And I would have thought Barron would have been off the board already. So
yeah, that's fair. Like, I don't think he should have been there still either. And I mean, I was going to go that way for Dallas. I just think that, like, it's not a huge need, but with his versatility and the way he plays, I totally could have seen him going there. But that's totally fine.
Dallas does need a boundary corner, Newt.
So I'm not like I like Ravel. I think that he can be really, really impactful. Who did he go? Oh no, Genty. So they have that guard opening.
So they need linebacker. They need corner. They need defensive
second
line,
receiver,
and another receiver. Yeah, Brandon, that's part of what I was thinking here. I'm also thinking defensive line. Like they've got Mozzie Smith in the middle. They need to go to the Ohio State side of that instead of the Michigan side.
Yeah, we're gonna go with that. We're gonna go. No, we'll go Tyleek Williams. There's a Jack Sawyer hesitation there. But they need to kind of shore up the center of that, what they got going on there. And I like Williams. Yeah, beef is the way of putting it.
Jim, you mentioning or go ahead. Sorry, I'll finish that part first and I'll go around.
No, the Colts took Starks, and I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
No worries. No, I jumped in front of you. That was total out of order of operations. But so I was just gonna say, you brought up Michigan and now Ohio State for the D tackles there in Dallas. I didn't even think about it to mention it, but then I kept thinking about it while everyone else was talking. You had the Detroit Lions taking an Ohio State quarterback.
I did.
I think that's blasphemy in some circles.
Aiden Hutchinson is going to relish every rep that he gets. They're going against first team, second team. He's just going to the reason they took it. I know it now. It makes sense, Jim. They took it to make Aiden Hutchinson play better. They're going to bring out that ferocity in him.
Okay, I'm here with Brandon with the Mason Taylor pick. They missed out on their tight ends, both tight ends in the first round, with Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren.
Yeah, so question on Fannin, Arroyo, Taylor. The Colts tend to like athletic players. Isn't that Arroyo over Fannin?
Yeah, and I could definitely see it, especially because they still have Moelle Cox, who's kind of the more traditional inline guy. Fannin, I'm playing around with a take that Fannin is a fullback in the NFL as opposed to a tight end, just from some. Yep. It's still cooking. It's marinating. We'll return to that at a different date.
It's like Larry Centers type fullback, and of course, Owen, you're a lot younger than me. Do you remember who Larry Centers is?
I unfortunately do not.
Newt, how well am I dating? Do you know?
You're dating yourself.
Yeah. So, Larry Centers played for the Cardinals, then came to Buffalo as a free agent. He was the kind of fullback that would catch 60 passes a year.
Back when they had leather helmets and it was in sepia.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I do agree that I think that the more athletic player is usually what they like to go for with their tight ends. But I also think that right now they have so many weapons in the passing game when it comes to having Downs, Pittman, and Pierce, and they're going to want someone who plays more off of their running game, their design running game with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. So I think just adding more bodies, especially if they're going to eventually move on from Moelle Cox, having someone who could take over that role specifically. So I do think Fannin tight end 1. Let's roll Mason Taylor here.
I've talked with Ryan a couple times on that. He's a fan through and through.
Yeah. You want Mason Taylor, Owen?
Yes, please.
Okay, Falcons on the clock, and this is me for Atlanta, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't matter who they took in round 1. This pick is Xavier Watts. I'm going to confirm.
That was wow. That fell to him really well. I'm sure that Cole's loving that pick.
So yeah, and I know from talking with Clint, who's a Falcons fan, that there's a huge need at safety here.
Yep.
And if Xavier Watts is there in round 2, he should be the number 1 player on the board.
Yeah. God, I can't remember if Clint wrote the article, but it was something like every time Ryan Grant, who's the guy that they drafted and has not seen the field, Richie Grant. Every time Richie Grant has a pass thrown his way, it inevitably ends up for a touchdown for the opposing team because of falling down or X, Y, and Z. So I definitely get that. Right, Justin Simmons, was he on a 1-year deal for the Falcons? And even if he was, I think, he got cut by Denver because of obviously like some cap pieces, but like he's an aging prospect. I think that if you take a look at that, you've got to kind of consider your room as a whole and not look necessarily at next year, especially when, the Falcons are going to be, maybe pushing for the NFC South. Yeah. But their Super Bowl odds are not going to be overly high. So I think Watts there is a great pick. That's me for the Cardinals, and they went. I swear to God,
if you snipe me,
Mike Green.
Yep.
Let's see here.
I would think that they would need either interior offensive line, even though I don't think I like the board. They need another wide receiver to go opposite Marvin Harrison Jr., and they need help on defense every which way but lose.
Well, they do like Michael Wilson as that outside receiver. There. And they have someone in the slot. I think they have Greg Dortch, which, I mean, that's an upgradable player, but I wouldn't say that's probably their most pressing need.
Wait, who did they take again? I just said it. Mike Green.
Yeah. But like the interior defensive line, I think would be really a serious choice here.
Who's still left? we took a lot of them.
Yeah, we did. Man, dude, it's like we ranked them or something like that.
Darius Alexander, TJ Sanders, Riley
TJ Sanders.
Mills.
Oh no.
I'm gonna go Ariante Ursary. I'm gonna get a right tackle to play opposite Paris Campbell, and I'm gonna help the offensive line this side, or this time I should say. I think this is maybe like a little not like overly early, but it's kind of where the conversation starts to open up for Ursary.
And I think you needed to do that because you may have just sniped a player from Miami.
That would have been a nice piece to go for, but I think I had a guy in mind when I first was looking at this pick, and I was worried because he's not plays defense that Newt would snipe this guy from me. And I, according to Kyle Krabs, who was the Locked On Dolphins guy or a podcaster who covers also NFL scouting, he's thinking that they're gonna target a lot of interior offensive linemen in the free agency. And I do respect the Darius Alexander pick here. He definitely should be higher, but I'm gonna go with Nick Emmanwori. They have Jordan Poyer at safety, and Javon Holland is going to be expiring contract, and they're already in like contentious contract talks with him, kind of being talked up is that he's probably not going to be back. So you're looking at upgrading at both safety positions. So he can go literally anywhere and be playing for this team.
Okay, so this is me for the Bengals. They took Walter Nolan in round 1. I know that Ryan likes Sawyer, so there's a really good chance that I think that's the picks. They need pass rush. They also need offensive line, but I'm not thrilled with those choices. And I'm not really thrilled with these choices either. So I'm going to go Jack Sawyer here.
He was the next one. Like, that kind of glaring one that had to fall.
Yeah, Ryan, I see your comment. Out of all the interior offensive linemen here, like Ratledge is there. And then Embo. Would you have taken either of them over Sawyer? Just out of curiosity, Ryan, I took Sawyer, so the pick is in, and Newt's on the clock for Seattle. But just curious what you thought, Ryan. And Seattle in round 1.
Where they
went Will Campbell.
Yeah, so we are going to go with. This is where we're gonna go. I'm thinking Embo here because of that option for him playing guard or center, and God knows that Seattle they basically need all three. of their interior offensive linemen, like Owen said. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go Marcus Mbo.
Okay, and Owen, you're up for Denver. I'm making sure I'm pausing just to make sure I have the order right. And
yeah, you're good.
Denver went Jihad Campbell round 1.
Wait, is it Denver or is it Buccaneers?
No, so this happened in that other simulator. Doesn't have the right order.
Really?
Because whatchamacallit, Dom told me the same thing. And then I went to Tankathon and looked, and the order on my site mirrors Tankathon. So
interesting. I would have loved Colston Loveland there in the first to make this pick a lot easier on me because Sean Payton's looking for mismatches on offense, and I'm looking at like wide receiver. It's kind of tough with who's currently on the board because like Ayumanor is good, but he kind of clashes with Cortland Sutton being there. Deshaun Vele is their slot, so you'd like maybe something better there. Isaiah Bond is a speed guy that could be a mismatch, but they already have Troy Franklin, who's just kind of undersized, kind of in the same vein as it is Isaiah Bond. I think the pick I'm going to go with here is going to be Elijah Arroyo, just because he has that athletic mismatch at tight end. They have Adam Troutman to be more of an inline guy, and they're just looking for difference makers who can create kind of these mismatch opportunities on offense and defense.
Okay, so I'm up for Pittsburgh. They took Higgins in round 1. And I am going to turn around and do a defensive lineman in round 2. I'm going to go Darius Alexander.
Yeah.
The slide stops.
Yep. And then Newt, you're up for Tampa Bay.
Okay, I got
which took. I'm looking. Jalen Walker in round 1. And wow. Okay, and look at the top 3 guys on the board. Like, I'm impressed that the fans, like that this is who the fans are picking when the Buccaneers are here. So I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Nice.
Because I think for Tampa Bay, I think any of those top 3 picks would be excellent. I mean, there's other players to talk about too, but
the question with Tampa Bay is, does Godwin come back? If Godwin comes back,
they're very good at retaining their guys, especially if they're lifers like Chris Godwin.
Yeah. But now that I'm saying,
like, at the same time,
Godwin are like getting up there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's just one thing that like I think about a little bit. So,
but Porter's go. Amos is here.
I'm gonna go Ravel here. It's another one of those that like the slide stops for him. In my opinion, I do. After you said it, I thought a little bit more about that wide receiver and the age. Even though they have 3 guys, if they keep Godwin, the age is still starting to kind of show itself. However long Mike Evans can go, kudos to him. But I think that they have to take BPA when it's like that high, and Ravel is definitely gonna have a spot in the backfield.
Oh, how the turns tabled.
Do you want to do the Green Bay pick?
No, I actually I would love this to not do the Green Bay pick.
Okay. Yeah, well, so this is working out perfectly because I'm gonna be doing Green Bay and Newt will be doing the Bills. Now, Newt, I want to slide some ideas I had past you because I was looking at Ravel just because you have to find a corner. I was looking at a corner opposite Jair Alexander or in replacement of Jair Alexander if that ever ends up being a situation that you need to move on from. I know they've tried out a couple different things with Eric Stokes in the first round previously. I'm also looking at Ayumanor just because I know Christian Watson hasn't really lived up to what they've drafted there, and that's kind of their height, weight, speed guy. So I'm kind of curious what you're thinking on which position would they tend to aim at here, and what do you think their need is specifically when it comes to like what kind of receiver they would want in that room, or what kind of corner they need specifically, whether it's going to be a replacement for Jair or opposite.
The thing with Io Manor is I don't know how well he tests. I like him. I like him a lot. I have Xavier Restrepo just like a touch above him, but they wouldn't take Restrepo here. I think for me, you said the two guys that I'd be happy with here. If you took Trey Amos here, I'd love it. If you took Alec Iomenor here, I think that's great. And I think he has the opportunity to blossom into that wide receiver one. I don't want them to take a guy who's got, high floor, low ceiling. I think Io Manor does. I think that there are still a fair amount of good wide receivers left on the board, but I don't think when the Packers get back around there that there will be. So I don't think you're going to go wrong with either one. Io Manor being here does make me a little bit happy, and I have him higher on my board.
Yeah, I also do. He was the one I was considering going back and forth with the Steelers pick way back in the first round because I have them graded very similarly. I just ended up going with Jaden Higgins just because I like him a tad more as a complete receiver prospect right now. I think Io Manor definitely has a decent ceiling. He was a track guy in college, Canadian player, hasn't played a lot of American football for a while. He's a smart guy, works hard.
Oh, he's Canadian? I didn't know that. He's undraftable then. I can't, with the Four Nations on right now, I can't.
Tie game
getting
third.
Exported. Yeah, say that I draft a Canadian. No. I like him for sure.
I think he definitely has. I think he has like wide receiver one potential. I don't know if it's ever going to be reached, but it's definitely there. So I think I'm going to lean towards Io Manor there for the Packers.
I like it.
Okay. So this is me for the Chargers again.
Yes.
Right. So they took the Colston Loveland in round one. And
does Jim Harbaugh dare go an Ohio State running back?
I was thinking Henderson.
That's also what I had in mind.
I'm gonna what the hell? I'm going Travion Henderson. And Newt is on the clock for the first of Buffalo's 2 second-round picks.
Oh man.
This is pressure.
The pressure is mounting
against 2 Bills fans here. Like
the pressure is. Sorry, I'm just like getting my board updated to match. So, the Bills took Matthew Golden in the first, which makes a ton of sense to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. Not high enough to take here.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Jordan Birch wouldn't fit in that system that well.
So yes, because he's a bigger body kind of power edge rusher, but they also took AJ Epinesa, who was another guy who was like 285, 290 on the edge, and then eventually just molded his body into whatever they so willingly pleased.
Okay. This is what I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Trey Amos here. I think that it helps build that depth. We saw in that AFC Championship game them get demolished, and I know they had an injury, and that forced Elam out onto the field. But I think if you can get some depth, get a good young player in there, then you're not going to run into a situation like that again. So I'm going to go with Trey Amos. How does it grade out, Jim?
Oh, I like it.
Okay. Owen?
Yeah, I think you're right on with corner being a need there because Christian Benford did get knocked out, and right now Rasul Douglas is set to probably be a free agent that walks. So they're going to need a guy opposite Benford when he comes back from injury, which was a concussion. He should be good to go. And that right now it's penciled in as being Kyrie Elam. And if I remember correctly with our cornerback episode, you can go back and watch the VOD of that on the NFL Draft Fanatic or Draft Professor YouTube channel. we talked about Trey Amos as being a guy who has, I believe, if I'm not getting my wires crossed between him and I think Hairston, maybe was the other guy that had this kind of trait where he had this kind of sense and zone where he was able to adjust to things behind him without really having to turn his head around. And the Bills run a lot of zone schemes there. So I do think corner is perfect. I think Amos works well in the zone system, so he's not going to be lost. I do have a take cooking that because the Bills love players that transition or aren't traditionally in the one position or transition from position to the other, that they're going to like Darian Porter's because he was a former wide receiver. But I do think Trey Amos fits better than Porter does right now schematically.
Okay. Panthers on the clock and in round 1. I looked it up, forgot, so I have to go look it up again. Will Johnson.
They took Will Johnson, yeah.
Yep. So this would be, so Newt just made this pick, so this is Owen.
Oh yes, I'm the one who gets lost now. So with the Panthers, Will Johnson, obviously, I think he's a stud. Cornerback 1 team here with me and Newt. We were the lone dissenters there in that podcast. Something we rarely agreed on.
It's not often, so it's kind of a special occasion when it happens.
I'm kind of mad at I kind of sniped myself here with the Iomanner pick just because Jalen Coker is penciled in to be their starting wide receiver outside of Leggett and Thielen. So I'd kind of want to add someone there. Maybe they go after that in free agency. They kind of need a little bit of everything. I don't know who are your available receivers on your board right now, Jim. While I pull up my board here to take a look at what we got going on.
I would say
Jack
Felton, Besh, Sabi, and Williams. And I mean, there's a few others. Obviously, Royals is there.
Restrepo is there.
Horton this high. Restrepo, Bond.
I think because if they bring back Thielen, unless they want to create cap space, I don't think they have any reason to not want to bring him back. He seems happy to be there. I think they need an outside guy to complement Xavier Leggett. And I'm going to go with my current highest wide receiver left on the board, and I'm going to go with Trey Harris from Ole Miss.
Okay.
Outside receiver, push it down the field. Xavier Leggett could be more of that over the middle, run after catch guy, and you now have whoever they bring in for the slot. Maybe they go target one of these guys later in the draft with Restrepo or Noel or my guy Afton Chisholm later on to be the slot guy to replace Adam Thielen eventually. But I do think that complements what they have currently in that room.
Okay, and I didn't hear the player that you talked about.
Oh, sorry, Trey Harris.
Okay.
My apologies. My top receiver left on the board.
I think you said it, but my mind was somewhere else because I was getting ready for the Houston pick.
Gotcha.
So Brandon for Houston in round 1, they went Shamar Stewart. I'm thinking TJ Sanders here or a wide receiver. But Brandon, if you're listening, let me know. Running back might enter my mind, but I think they'll be able to get a running back later. Tight end might enter my mind.
They definitely need O-line after that Chiefs game.
And then from an offensive line standpoint, I don't know if I like Ratledge this early. Like, it's almost where he should be.
So Brandon in the chat says Cameron Williams out of Texas.
Yep.
He says UT, which is a whole other debate. Because whenever I see that, I think of Tennessee, but which my director of player personnel UB is from Texas, and we have this debate a lot over what true UT is.
Yep.
That could put in
Brandon. I will do as you command. I'm completely okay with that. But I do like that pick. I know that the Texans need offensive line help, and he was probably the best offensive line prospect on the board at this point.
All right. We got Michael Williams in the first to the Baltimore Ravens.
Yep. And they need interior.
Yeah, but they can get that later. Jack Besh. Let's go ahead and keep the options running for that offense and keep them chugging. I love that with Zay Flowers and Jack Besh together. I think that is that's an awesome pairing.
I almost forgot who Detroit picked in round 1.
I didn't.
Oh my gosh. It was so ridiculous.
Yeah, so Owen, you have a chance to redeem the first round pick.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a sticky situation here because we have just a couple different spots that you want to add to. There's probably some interior defensive line talk here, an edge to complement Aiden Hutchinson for a longer term. You could also look at wide receiver. I know we had the Jameson Williams talks earlier. You could go Isaiah Bond to kind of replace that role in your offense. I'm kind of leaning towards that just because I am higher on Isaiah Bond as a player on his tape than most people are. But I also do think that the defensive tackle is a bigger issue. They also have had mocks where they've added O-line at this point. Jalen Milroe could have been a pick here, but, no need for a quarterback anymore.
Could I throw one out there just to have you
go ahead,
on it?
Shoot.
Unman Mielen as that compliment, as a guy that could, really open up that pass rush.
I was looking at him. I know I'm pretty high on him. This is about a little pass where I would take him. I just rewatched this film again, and while I don't have him as a round 1 guy anymore, I do think he is someone who can go in this area and be good. So I don't know what their appetite is for having guys who are these like more speedy, twitchy stand-up linebacker edge rushers. But if that's something that Hutchinson is more of a traditional down lineman, so I could see that being complimented. They did go after Preston Smith, so I like that pick. Let's go with that. Let's run with Princely. Ooh, how did you pronounce it?
Unman Mielen.
Unman
Mielen.
Got it. Unman Mielen.
Okay. And then the Commanders in round 1 went Igbuka. Round 2, I'm going to go Darian Porter. And Buffalo is on the clock, and that would be Newt.
Yep. Darian Porter for the Commanders. I think I have my guy. Once again, this is a lot of pressure here. I don't want to get, kicked off the podcast. I said at the beginning how much I like coming to this thing every week, and I feel like I could really screw this up.
I think you self-sabotage yourself because my favorite pick here would have been Unman Mielen. But he's now gone.
Yeah, no, I'm building in excuses. That's the long game right there. I want to go with TJ Sanders as a interior player that I think could do a lot to beef up that defensive interior that I know every Buffalo Bill wants. Am I allowed to make that pick?
Oh, you are, and you just sniped him for me because I was going to take him for Kansas City next. There was no way he should get out of round 1. Or way he should get out of round 2.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow, that is like...
He has been in, I think DJ had him as a first-round mock 2.0.
Really?
Yeah. So, Ryan Sparks, remind me, you have TJ Sanders as defensive tackle 3, right?
Wow.
I believe I remembered seeing Ryan's board like that. So, tight ends. So, if I did tight end here, it's Gunnar Helm. What are my running backs?
If he lasts, I don't think he would in the first, but I've been in love with the Colson Loveland to the Chiefs at the end of the first if he gets there. But I don't know if Travis Kelce is a Chief this time next year, whether it's his decision or not.
I'm going Gunnar Helm. So
is the next one up on your board? Just out of curiosity.
He would have been from mine, yeah.
Yeah, so Helm's the next guy that you like too, Jim, I'm assuming, more than Fannin?
Yeah, and it's more like for me that's based upon athletic ability. And then as I'm listening to different people give their tight end boards, Fannin isn't as high for everybody. Like, or I've seen a lot of boards with Helm and Arroyo higher than Fannin, with Fannin being around 3 or 4 guy. Right. And I think some of it might be that fullback vibe that you guys were giving earlier. So
wait, who made that pick? Was it Jim or Owen? Did. Oh, wasn't it supposed to be Owen?
Oh,
was it?
Oops.
Yeah, it was supposed to be you. Owen? You did.
That's all right.
So, Owen, you got the Eagles pick. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'll get to finish this out. That's okay. So, I mean, this is always the hardest pick, right? You could even in the first round, you're like, oh, they add supply of riches, whatever. But once you get to the second round with the team that just looked unbeatable in the Super Bowl, it's like, where do you want to start adding pieces? What looking forward? What do they need to start replacing? I'm kind of teetering towards edge just because I know that who was it? Josh Sweat is going to be an expiring contract soon.
Even with Pierce Jr. being taken?
Yep.
Oh, they took Pierce Jr. Never mind then. Yep. See?
I'm glad we thought alike there, though. That's good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if I would have paid attention to what happened earlier in the mock, I would have totally agreed. I mean, I'm struggling to see a spot where it's like anything jumping out immediately to me. I don't know if I got any input from you guys or the chat. What are we thinking is the most pressing need for the Eagles at this point in the
tight
draft?
End. They need a tight end.
A second one,
I don't
you mean?
Like the,
well, outside
I
of
don't
them.
like the tight ends though.
No, so the question would be, would you take Fannin to the Eagles? So David, who's a Philadelphia Eagles fan, he's a draft professor. It's edge, tight end, and I think he said corner.
I have one to toss out. I have one to toss out there. This is maybe a little absurd, but Jim already blew the top off that. We could make our friend Josh Townsend very happy with a Sean Dolak pick at the end, given the fact that Nakobe Dean has had some very pressing injury concerns. And is Bond a free agent?
I think he took a flyer. Yeah, like a 1-year flyer on there.
So
I was definitely thinking linebacker.
I'm not saying that you got to go Dolak. That was more just to kind of get the conversation in there. But I think linebacker is kind of a under the radar need for them. If there's one here that you like.
Yeah, and Ryan is suggesting Ratledge on the interior as well, because I don't know if Mekhi Becton is under contract.
Yeah, so PFF has guard as their top need.
Yeah.
On their list of current needs here. So it could be Ratledge. Plus, you're looking at Landon Dickerson, who's going to be a market resetting guard if they don't feel like they have the cap space to fit him in there as well. Could go interior. Could go linebacker. I know Kaiser from Notre Dame. I can't remember who it was on the linebacker podcast was talking him up a ton a few months back when you guys first covered him in the same episode you guys covered Dolak.
Yeah,
so
Josh likes him. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's make Josh happy. I can't go Dolak here in good consciousness, but let's go Jack Kaiser to be a developmental linebacker for them.
Nice,
cool. And just like that, in 90 minutes, we finished a 2-round mock.
Man, that's actually pretty good, given the fact we were 13 through 4 picks.
We did
just in time to catch the third for America's victory in ice hockey for the first time since 2000. I don't even know how long ago.
I don't know.
I
can still remember 2010 watching them lose in overtime to the freaking Sidney Crosby goal.
It's one of my earliest hockey memories was that Olympic run.
Oh,
yeah, but
God,
they haven't played.
I can remember it.
They haven't played in a championship game. This is what I heard was the U.S. versus Canada hasn't played in a best on best international championship game since that 2010 gold medal game. So I don't even know how long it's been since U.S. beat them.
Yeah, it's got to be a long time then.
I'm interested to see all the tweets with the grades out and getting some reactions on that.
I will download these and get that going. While we have both of you guys here and the audience still here, there is a 32 GM mock tomorrow. It is actually going to be hosted by Dale, who's Bengals and Brews, who's been on with you guys. It's going to be hosted by Bill Carroll.
Dale's awesome.
It's going to be hosted by David, which is Philadelphia Eagles News. So it should be a pretty big event. Bill Carroll is with NBS Media. And I've been working with Bill for about 3 years on draft stuff. So the event tomorrow should be among the larger 32 GM mocks that we do.
Nice.
So, hey, so there's a question in the chat. Do either of you guys want to take this one?
Sure. I think there's definitely been especially I'll field it because I was the one who took T-Mac to the Giants there at 3. I think there's especially some blowback. We get this every year with players that are so good it gets boring, where you just start getting blowback on like what makes them kind of special. I wasn't the biggest Drake London guy coming out. To what he's played so far in the NFL, I think that comp's not disrespectful at all. Drake London was like the 8th overall pick in his own draft class, ahead of guys like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. So I don't think that should keep you, if you think he's like Drake London, that should keep you from being super high on him. But for me, it just becomes the mix of he has great movement for his size, and his size is what makes him elite. His body control to be able to adjust and make catches and come back down in bounds and really just you can throw up any kind of ball to him, regardless of where he is on the field or what the play is, and you can trust that it becomes a 65-35 ball or a 70-30 ball. I probably should have went with more round numbers than a 50-50, just because he's so elite at high pointing and body control and has that size and has the explosiveness out of his stance and out of just in any kind of position he can get himself in. So I think while he isn't like an absolute burner, he does bring you stuff that you do love to see, and it kind of combines a bunch of different elements of different receivers. I don't want to make this comp, but just because I don't think he's not as good of an athlete as this guy is, but I think like his ceiling is like he can get like Julio Jones-esque with the amount of like insane catches he can do, be able to extend, use that frame to really attack any kind of ball you throw at him. And yeah, I do think he's being a bit underrated now because of how much backlash has been with how popular it has been for him to be in the top of the boards.
Let me jump off that too. What if I were to say, and this is kind of one we talked about a little bit in the wide receiver episode. What if I said Mike Evans for a comp, and looking at him in terms of you put on 15 pounds and you are like almost the exact same size as that guy.
Yeah, I think his frame's a little more slender, so I don't know how likely it is he can add like 15. And Mike Evans is a beast for his size and be able to move. And I think even though they're not the exact same body types, T-Mac's a little bit longer, a little more like gangly, and has longer limbs, but is like less filled out throughout his body. But the way they play and the way they win is very similar. I think what's being underrated about him right now is how well he can play through physicality, despite being kind of this longer, lankier kind of guy. So I do like the comp in play style. I think physical traits wise, when you look up his mock draftable, his top comps probably won't be Mike Evans, but I think play style wise and watching him, you definitely get glimpses of that. Similar players, Mike Evans, Julio, Drake London was a guy who we saw with like a size can contort his body that way, and also brings other elements to his game of athleticism and intelligence and be able to run with the ball in his hands and have some good ball carrier vision to add on. And it's not just like he's not Armstrong from Arkansas, who is 6'5" and is exclusively a jump ball guy. He does that and then so much more to his game, including separation with routes and explosiveness out of his stance. And he does a lot more than a guy who's more one-dimensional like Armstrong is.
Yeah. And then so the second part of the question, I'll take that one because I was the one that made the Graham pick. And I stand by that like through and through. I would be even willing to take him number 4 or even 3, depending on how the board shook out. Like I said, he's my 3rd ranked player. I think Mason Graham, I've made this comparison before. And there's a lot of, and it's funny because Owen, I know you may just made a tweet about helmet scouting and helmet comps. But I I compare him in my head in terms of, and the question was really well worded in terms of like can he take over a defense and like what are you banking on with Mason Graham? Aiden Hutchinson is a player that continuously comes to mind. Two different positions, obviously similar enough with the defensive line, but interior versus edge. But I think he's like the surest of things for just about any player that you're going to see in this draft. I think he comes in with a extremely high floor, and he's going to be a player that has a ceiling that's going to be based on both his ability, his size, but then also just like the way he approaches the game. I love everything about Mason Graham and how he operates. For an actual comp, like in terms of like athletic and profile, I don't do a ton of comps myself. Quinnen Williams has been the one I think that has been thrown around a ton, comping to Mason Graham in terms of both his size and his movement with that size. And I think it's totally appropriate. I like that one a fair amount. But yeah, I think Mason Graham is the highest floor defensive player in this draft.
I think I could agree with that, especially because he has a high floor, and that's what a lot of what I value when I'm ranking guys. Mason Graham, also my third overall player. Mine goes Travis Hunter, who, just to push back a little bit because we can never agree to totally anything, Newt. I do think Travis Hunter has a higher floor just because he has that element of playing receiver. I think Travis Hunter's floor is receiver, and then his ceiling is at corner. But regardless of that freak phenomenon unicorn, yes, pure defensive player, Mason Graham has the highest floor, and then also has ceiling because like he's not a super developed pass rusher. Like he understands how to use his hands, has power. I think his ceiling is going to be unlocked by the team that drafts him. Because if you're going to draft him, you could ask him to be a block eating guy, just absorb, defend the run. That's what we want you to focus on. But if someone drafts him and was like, hey, we want you to be an impact player on pass rush, put some more time and effort into there, and we can live with you not developing your run defense as much right now, and then slowly working everything towards together. We want you to get up to date with pass rush. He can also be a higher end pass rusher. So he has a high floor, also has a high ceiling, and it's all dependent on what you're going to ask him to do because he can literally do everything. Also, I know just because we're being takey here and talking about kind of different things, I said Travis Hunter is player 1, Mason Graham is player 3. Can you have any guess of who player 2 is on my board, Newt?
I'm going to assume it's not Abdul Carter based on – I swear to God, if it is Abdul Carter, I'm going to be pissed because you set that up.
Mason Graham or Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter is player 4.
Ashton Jeanty.
Ashton Jeanty is player 6.
All right, I don't know.
Tyler Warren is my second overall player in this draft.
Ooh, okay.
I love Tyler Warren. I think I undersold it earlier.
Let's clip that one. Put that as the audio for advertising the mock, and we'll just get the clickbait. That and the Will Howard alone. That's just that's feeding the clickbait for the episode.
I would love to do some kind of tight end episode if we did something like that, because I do think this tight end group is really interesting because you have a guy, you have top end talent with Warren, and you also have a guy in Colson Loveland who I rewatched this film again. I had him originally with a first round grade. I dropped him down to just barely out of a true first round grade for me, but still a guy I'm totally comfortable taking there. And is another guy who isn't a true inline blocker, but is more of this, you want him as your number 2 tight end move guy. You have guys, the Georgia Tech tight end, Haynes King, I think his name is, or that's the quarterback. There's a tight end in Georgia Tech that's an elite run blocking guy, but doesn't really offer anything outside of that. Then you have Harold Fannin, who we've discussed, tight end 1 in the chat. Also, we have, I think he could be potentially a fullback. You have a bunch of guys with different body types and abilities that I think could you can get into a good conversation talking about if these guys are tight end 1, where you can match them up to their kind of types, like we did with the wide receivers and corners, breaking down different categories, even then with tight ends.
So we did a tight end episode today at 7. So that was the warm up for you guys. So
awesome.
Durst, his boards are the 2 on the left, and he divided them up just like you said, Owen. So the list on on the left are the inline tight ends. So that would be this one over here. And then these are his flex tight ends.
Yeah. Jackson Hawes was who I was talking about, the Georgia Tech guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad you clarified that because I saw the second one on the left and I saw no Tyler Warren at all in that list, and I almost had to fight everybody.
He tried to not put a tight end in both lists, but he said like Tyler Warren and Gunnar Helm could have been in both lists.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, ultimately we can do whichever content you guys want, but we are running relatively late, so let's shut this thing down so that we can replay it. Because if it's under 2 hours, we can replay it.
100%.
Absolutely.
So for the 37 draft professors for the 37 podcasters at the Draft Professor, for Owen, for Newt, for me, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the podcast again tomorrow.
Go USA Hockey.
Yeah, there it is.